If you would like to hear how my recent trip to Nepal went, stay tuned. Hello everybody, this is Priya here. Welcome back to my channel if you're returning, and if this is the first time, thank you so much for taking some of your precious time to spend with me. So today it would be my first travel vlog, and please be kind. It would be the first time I would be attempting such a thing. So I thought it would be an exciting thing to take you along as I relive those moments, sharing them with you and sharing all the information we gathered while we were there. So I've divided the video into a couple of sections. I'll have the timestamps down in the description, so make sure you check that out if you want to jump to any specific section. Stay tuned for pro tips on traveling in general and also for Nepal specifically, in addition to a section where I shared all the souvenirs I picked up while I was there. As you can see, Nepal is situated right on top of the Himalayas, and because of all the political situations in the area, has lots of friendly neighbors like India and Bhutan and Tibet, and it has excellent trade relations in addition to just being good next door neighbors. So there's an excellent trade and friendship relations between India and Nepal. So Indian passport holders they need no visa for Nepal. It's like going to another state. Since I'm also talking about US citizens, probably there are SAARC nations, again, have certain priority for the entry and the visa restrictions. But other than that, it is for any of the Western passports, it is going to be a visa on arrival. But we tried getting the visa ahead of time, but their system had some glitches and we had to redo the process once we landed there. So if you fill up the form and pay the assigned fees on arrival, it should be fine. You can get a visa on arrival for non-Indian passport holders. So that's a good place to start. We went in March of 2024, so it was starting to get warm already thanks to the global warming. So otherwise, I don't think it would be as warm as we found the place to be. So now for some interesting facts about Nepal. So do you notice that flag on the bottom right corner? The only flag in the entire world which does not have a rectangular shape. So this was because they were ruled by Hindu kings, and this is the shape of the flag which typically is found on top of the Hindu temples, right on top of the structure, and this is the shape specifically for that. So that's the reason they adopted that, because it was a Hindu nation. It still is, and it does have a prime minister and a president, even though the royal family still lives there, but they do not have any official powers. It's democratic country. Nepal is the only country in the world which has a very unique time difference. It's GMT plus 5 hours and 45 minutes. And again, this is the only country which has that. So did you know that the Mount Everest, the top of the world, it stretches across Nepal and Tibet? Many adventurers and trekkers dream of summiting Mount Everest, or at least reaching the base of the world's highest peak. Nepal is also known as a land of temples, including Hindu and Buddhist temples. Nepal has 10 UNESCO World Heritage Sites, and among them, 8 are cultural heritage sites. The next thing is the mythical mystery Yeti, also known as the abominable snowman, which is a creature that captures the imagination of many people. Once upon a time, did you know that Nepal was the weed capital of the world in the 60s? The founder of Buddhism, Gautam Buddha, was born in Lumbini, which lies in Nepal. And there is another interesting fact about the living goddess called Kumari. The only living goddess in the world can be found in Nepal. The literal meaning of Kumari is a virgin girl. In Nepal, these Kumari, or living goddesses, are considered to be earthly manifestations of divine female energy. Nepal is a holder of numerous records. Nepal holds several records, which makes a high profile for the small country. It has the highest peak in the world, Mount Everest. There are lakes like Tilicho Lake, the lake at the highest altitude at a height of 4,800 meters. Shea Phoksundo Lake, the deepest lake of 140 meters at a height of 3,600 meters. The deepest gorge of Kali Gandagi, 1,200 meters, and the highest valley on earth, the Arun Valley. Nepal has over 80 ethnic groups and 123 languages and dialects. So we landed at Kathmandu, which was the capital of Nepal, and then we had applied for the online visa for the US passports. but their process had some issues, so we had to redo the full thing once we landed there. Proceeded to the immigration, and we wanted to get a local SIM so that we could be connected if at all anybody from home wanted to reach out to us. Got an airport pickup from the hotel, went to the hotel, checked in, and had a quick late lunch / early dinner, and we stepped out to explore the surroundings. We stayed at the Tamil area. It was a Sunday and we were walking to Hanuman God Darbar Square. We narrowly missed all the chaos of the Holi. Water balloons, water guns, water bombs on top of big buckets of colored water from the top of buildings lining both sides of the streets. It was fun for those who wanted to get drenched. And you can clearly see who was interested in having some fun because they were wearing white shirts. None of us were intentionally, because later that day we were traveling and there is no way we wanted to get wet on that particular day. We were walking to the Hanuman God Darbar Square when we spotted this Buddhist stupa, a less crowded one for a change, and we spotted a Buddhist monastery along the side, and they were very warm and they invited us to walk into their monastery and their prayer hall. And I love the Buddhist monasteries. I have been to a few before and I love that energy, those positive vibes you feel once you step into them. And it is obviously a place where they pray. So you can feel the positivity. We did spend some time sitting there meditating, even though my kids were not keen on doing it. We insisted, so we did that. And it was a day where they were all remembering. There were even, I think, kids below 10 who were young monks, and they were traveling as a group, and the group that was there were from a certain part of India, which is close to where I am from. So it was interesting. And also they were praying and offering food for their beloved deceased in their family. Even though they are monks, they come from families and they are remembering the deceased. So it was one of those special days where they kept special treats for the elderly. So the Baudhananda Stupa is where we stop next. And this is the structure is completely concrete. It's solid inside. There is no place to go inside in any of the stupas. Stupa just means a structure, and it is fully concrete inside. And the eyes you see are called the Buddha eyes, and anywhere you stand around the structure, you think the eyes are looking at you, and the nose is the Devanagari script number 1. So that is the structure, the painting on the structure. This is the place where Buddhists, believers, monks, everybody who comes to pray, we saw a lot of folks who were actually praying and not just tourists. So that was interesting to see. This was in fact our view from the top of a restaurant that we decided to sit and take a break. So this was a nice, interesting view. And the restaurant was La Casita. So next stop was the world famous Pashupatinath temple, which is again a UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's again quite a religious site for us as a Hindu myself. So I'm approaching this from the tourist point of view and not like a religious person, even though I am a religious person, and I would have to go much, much deeper if I were to approach this in that angle. So just sharing information with you that I thought, if you were not a believer, a non-Hindu, if you're not a Hindu, you are technically not allowed inside the temple because there are lots of religious things associated with it. So for us Hindus, there are mythologies that have inseparable bond with the country and the temple. A lot of folks go to Nepal, to Mount Kailash, which is again part of Tibet and Nepal. So all of these are very holy places for us. So visiting the Lord Pashupatinath temple is a very, very important thing as a Hindu. We got to the airport pretty quick, and we were told that we could be put on an earlier flight, but we discovered later that the Pokhra airport was actually closed because of rains, and because it's so close to all the mountain ranges that are so tall, the weather becomes totally unpredictable and it has its own weather pattern. So usually it has to be shut down because the visibility is absolutely dangerous. So that was what happened, and we ended up having to wait there for 2 hours before they decided to abandon the idea and then try the next day morning. So we booked ourselves on the very first flight for next day morning, because typically in the mountains, especially the Himalayas, what happens is it clears up in the morning, and then towards midday the cloud starts rolling in, and then the weather is really bad and the visibility gets really poor. So the best bet was to book our tickets for mornings, which we did, and we retired for the night. I woke up at 4:30 a.m., had a quick shower, and started for the airport with packed breakfast from Fairfield Inn. Got to the airport by 5:30 a.m. for the 6:30 flight. Delayed and time revised again and again, which was the fancy term for cancellations and delays. So we just kept going until 8 a.m. By then we had started thinking about what if it gets cancelled again. Luckily clouds were clearing and we took off at 8, and it was a 30-minute flight with lots of amazing views of snow-capped Himalayas and tons of clouds. The Pokhra airport was much better than the Kathmandu airport. We took a cab from there to the hotel and checked in, had a quick breakfast because the breakfast was still open. And then we checked out the rooms and the surrounding area before we hired a cab to take us around for 5 hours. If you follow me on Instagram, you must have already seen pictures from this hotel, which I shared in my stories. And if you're not, I would appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel and follow me on Instagram for future travel vlogs and trips. You will have all the updates in my stories there. We had the sunrise view from our hotel room. We also had a balcony as we got an upgrade. And if on a clear day, if you're lucky, you can see the sunrise right from your bed. First stop, Devi Fall, which is a waterfall. And then the water flows, it looks as if it just flows back into the crust of the earth, which was not the case. Then came Mahadev Falls, which was right across the street from there. And this was interesting because it was quite a lot of steps going underneath, and it was pretty dark, steep, and a lot of folks who must be claustrophobic will definitely have issues. We were supposed to have seen stalactites and stalagmites inside these caves, but we did not see much of that, although there was a very dainty little temple inside there, which was really interesting. Can you see where that water from the Devi Falls were actually falling into? This is where it ends up and then goes under the rocks. We decided to drive by the Pewa Lake just to see and try our luck with seeing a clear view of the Annapurna range. But since it was starting to cloud up, we did not have much of a luck. So we proceeded to the Annapurna cable car. It was a nice unplugged 10 minutes to and fro, and it was nice because we could hear the thunder rumble and we could see the clouds really starting to move in, and we were really keeping our fingers crossed for the rains to happen that night so that it could clear up and we could actually see the mountains a bit more clear from our hotel. This was the view from the cable car. This is one of the interesting wind vanes I found in the Vindhyavasini temple, which we stopped along the way. We decided to retire early and come back to the hotel as we had started our day at 4:30 a.m. Once we were back to the hotel, it started pouring. It was cloudy, but still a pretty good sight. Truly breathtaking given the fact that we were looking at just a tiny portion of the Himalayas, and even that was beyond words. I can only imagine how it must be feeling for the actual trekkers and hikers who do that hike. Woke up by 5:45 a.m. and it was still a bit cloudy. We had been given an upgrade with the Himalayan view and a balcony. We decided to go up to the view lounge anyway. It was truly a breathtaking view. The sun was rising on one side and the light shining on the snow-capped mountains. It was just a special moment. It was sad that my kids did not think it was worth it. Maybe they'll come back later as adults. After we got ready, took them upstairs for the view lounge to enjoy the view. I think they got lucky with the clouds. It was so much better than the day before. We checked out and got to the airport for the 9:30 a.m. flight. We took off from Pokhra after a small delay on a 72-seater small aircraft with no food service. Water is provided on request. We got to see almost all the peaks of the notorious Annapurna range. It was a glorious sight as we saw the clouds being formed, science in action. The dew and the wind blowing up the snow accumulated in the mountains to form the clouds right in front of our eyes. We took ample snaps from the aircraft as well. We were deep engrossed in enjoying the sights when we discovered that we were starting to descend already. It was funny because we had to take a flight just because of the road construction that was happening. They're expanding to an 8-lane path connecting Kathmandu to all the major tourist sites and beyond, so which would be a big leap in the tourism industry once completed. We had taken the Buddha Air. There were Yeti Airlines, Himalayan Airlines, Nepal Airlines, lots of other airlines to choose from as well to take that small trip. Got back to Kathmandu, checked into our hotel, and decided to explore the area on foot. So the Garden of Dreams was right across the corner from our hotel. So it was a quaint, little peaceful garden with lots of flowering shrubs and trees, with a couple of cafes inside to sit if you're keen to do that. It was right in the middle of the city. I spotted lots of species I've not seen until now, including white wisteria. I spotted even a couple of cherry blossoms, the last couple that were left on the tree. The blooms had peaked the week before we landed, thanks to global warming. I saw them just so that I can say I saw them. It was at the tippy top and I barely got to see the flowers up close. The botanist there was very knowledgeable and he proudly shared how he had loved serving in some of the biggest botanical parks in India. Not many folks talked to him about flora and fauna, that was very clear, because he had no plans to stop sharing all the knowledge he had. It was very informative. We walked around for a bit before we stepped out and started walking onwards to check out the Royal Palace grounds, which have now been converted into a museum. The Royal Museum was closed by 1:30, so we did not get to see it, and we decided to explore the Nepali institution, the Himalayan Java coffee, before we headed back to the hotel. We rested for a bit before we stepped out for dinner. We decided to explore some more shops on the way. As the shops close early, we did not have much time to waste. We hired a cab to drive to Bhakthapur and decided to stop at Swayambhunath on the way. Swayambhunath is a Devnagari name which means self-sprung. It's an ancient religious complex atop a hill in the Kathmandu Valley. The Tibetan name for the site means sublime trees. The complex consists of a stupa, a variety of shrines and temples, some dating back to the Licchavi period. A Tibetan monastery, a museum, and a library are more recent additions. The stupa has Buddha's eyes painted on them. You can reach it by steps there are all 365 steps to get to the top. It's like a physical workout if you do that every day. And there it once the whole circumference is about 2 kilometers, which is quite a workout if you are to do it every day. And you can decide to go by road, in which case you will have just a few steps remaining, or take the entire 365 steps. The first sight on reaching the top of the stairway is the Vajra. It also means thunderbolt. It's a Sanskrit word, and it's a legendary and ritualistic weapon symbolizing the properties of a diamond and a thunderbolt. According to Hinduism, Vajra is considered one of the most powerful weapons in the universe. According to mythology, the use of Vajra as a symbolic and ritual tool is mainly found in Tantric Buddhism. So you can see a lot of intersections between Hinduism and Buddhism. As we toured the place, there was even a temple inside there where moms come to pray for their kids, especially for health related issues. Bhakthapur is about 13 kilometers from Kathmandu, but it took us an hour because of the rush hour traffic. Bhakthapur is one of the main 3 cities in the Kathmandu Valley. For a reason, when we went there, we realized that. The guide informed us that it would take us 1.5 hours to see everything, but we had not accounted for that, and also it was looking like it would pour any moment. So we decided to hurry and explore as much as we could on our own. So we saw lots of architecturally appealing buildings. The royalty really knew how to bring majestic look to their temples and courtyards and their neighborhood as such. Even though the earthquake of 2015 hit the place well, they have reconstructed and brought a lot of buildings to its glory, so we did not notice much of a difference. The biggest temple in all of Nepal is situated here, the Nyatapola temple. And this was home to the Malla dynasty. The Bhakthapur managed to stay as a healthy and powerful neighbor kingdom, mostly due to its position in the ancient India-Tibet trade route. The statues adorning the steps of the Siddhi Lakshmi temple surprised me. Lots of animal sculptures around lots of temples and structures all over India. Rhinoceros is not one of them, so I was surprised to see, among other animals, rhino decorating the steps of the Siddhi Lakshmi temple. Next, we headed to the Pashupatinath temple again to witness the dusk arati that happens alongside the Bagmati river banks. So you have the temple in the background, you have the river flowing right in front of you, and it's a lot of chanting, it's a lot of prayers, it's a different vibe altogether. If you've been to the ones in India like Rishikesh or Varanasi, you know what exactly I'm talking about. But if you've not seen the Aarti anywhere in the holy cities or near the holy banks of rivers in North India, you must definitely check this out. Even if you're not a Hindu, you will enjoy the overall vibes and all the singing and all the devotional songs and the vibes that everybody starts repeating. This was the last day we spent there. We just decided to explore the folklore museum in the morning, but we decided to skip it because it was looking too dusty outside. So we did not want to take a risk and fall sick if at all anything happened. So we decided to stay put, relax a bit, pack, and then head out to the airport. So now for the pro tips for travelers. For the most comfortable flights, get your seats assigned on top of the wing or just above or behind the wings. This will be extremely helpful if you're motion sick or would rather prefer a smoother journey. Make sure you have the right cards with you, MasterCard or Visa or Diners Club or anything else. Call up the bank ahead of time to make sure you have lounge access for good food and access to quieter seating and washroom options. Proceed to the gate closer to actual boarding time. Make sure you wear soft, comfortable, loose clothing. Check whether you can be offered an upgrade. You never know. The last step would be, even if you're eligible for visa on arrival, get all the paperwork done online ahead of time to save time at the immigration. We had much better luck with many other countries than this time. Now for the pro tips for Nepal in particular, the much needed, the much awaited one. Get a cab with driver for the duration of your entire trip if you are not confident about your negotiating skills. If you plan on traveling by local cabs, make sure you brush up these much needed skills before you come. The local cabs are much cheaper, but they are much more smaller and not well maintained. On to 2. If you are traveling by flight from Kathmandu to Pokhra, make sure you secure the seats on the right side of the Kathmandu-Pokhra leg and the left side on the way back. Do you know why? Those are the best seats for aerial view of the Annapurna range of the Himalayas. Number 3. If you had to choose the order to visit the Darbar squares, or if you had to visit only one of the 3, go with Bhakthapur Square, Pathan Square and Kathmandu Square in that order, or the first if you don't have much time to spare. On to number 4. Most ATMs charge you rupees 650 Nepali rupees per transaction. It will be cheaper to bring the US dollars and exchange it at a money changer. 5. If you want to enjoy the majestic views of the Himalayas, picture perfect, travel between September to Jan. The other months are a hit and miss. If traveling from India, carry 100 rupee currencies only. 500 rupees and 2000 rupees are not accepted in Nepal. On to 7. If you're traveling by car, get out early in the morning or be ready to sit in the rush hour traffic most of the day. On to 8. If you would like to go to the Chitwan National Park, March is the best time to see lots of animals as it's just before the rains. Number 9. Account for a few hours of leeway when you plan the flights. Schedules could get affected because of quick weather changes in that area. Number 10. The last but not the least, if you want an aerial view of the Himalayas, there are flights from Kathmandu, if you can find a spot. There are flights from Kathmandu for a quick round trip. If the weather's bad, it's 100% refundable. So pick the safer months for a better chance. It's expensive though, around $1,300 per head. It's a once in a lifetime experience for sure. Let me know which of these tips you think you will need the most and which you thought was a great idea. I would love to know. And what's your favorite destination to travel to? Have you been there or is it on your list? Tell me all about it. Are you a travel person? Stay tuned for the next part 2 coming soon with all the gastronomical experiences we had and also the souvenirs I picked up from there. I hope all of you loved today's video. Let me know how I did with my first travel vlog. I would really appreciate it if you would consider subscribing to my channel and turning on the bell notification if you haven't already. I would really appreciate your support. Come hang out with me on Instagram. I will have all the details linked below. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one and stay tuned for part 2. Thank you. Bye.